Hi everyone, BritSimon here. So I wanted to talk to you about a subject which I think could possibly impact DV lottery, but it's an interesting sort of understanding of how politics are affecting the immigration landscape at the moment in the USA. So as I'm recording this video, it's not quite the end of December. It's December 28th today. And over the last 3 days or so, there has been quite a heated discussion taking place in public between certain members of the Trump administration or followers of Trump and the non-elected non-officials that are going to be working with the Trump administration. Namely Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, and others. And I should say there's sort of two camps. There's sort of like, there's the normal MAGA devotees, the sort of Trump followers and general Republicans that believe in Trump's agenda and America First and this sort of thing. And then there are the billionaire class of tech leaders who, for whatever reason, got behind Trump at various times, most notably Elon Musk, who spent about $270 million of his own personal money on helping Trump get elected. And then also Vivek Ramaswamy, who himself was a presidential candidate on the Republican side for a while, didn't do too well, but has been an outspoken supporter of Trump. Now, Trump has said that he's going to make the two of them in charge of a new Department of Government Efficiency department, DOGE, D-O-G-E. And their role is to search out wastage within the US government and make suggestions on how costs of the US government could be cut. That in itself is not necessarily a bad thing, as long as it's done with some intelligence and some sort of consideration. Frankly, it's not what we've seen from Elon Musk in the past in his other operations, where he's gone in with similar sort of cost-cutting exercises. He did the same thing when he acquired Twitter. He went in there and laid off a lot of staff. And what that really meant was that they were, as an organization, unable to innovate very quickly. And, you know, in some senses, they just kept on the platform going as it had already been going. So they were no longer able to develop other products, etc. They were just looking after the one product. So, you know, that's what Musk wanted to achieve when he acquired Twitter. But Musk and Ramaswamy are charged with finding ways of cutting lots of efficiency, and they've said that they would cut, you know, between 20 and 50%, and sometimes up to 100% of some departments, which they consider to be unnecessary. Okay, so quite an impactful role to the government's makeup if their advice is followed by Trump, right? So that's the background of how Trump considers Musk and Ramaswamy in terms of advisors to him on certain aspects. And also, Musk himself became very popular on the right with the MAGA supporters as soon as Musk came out and started supporting Trump, which he did after the first assassination attempt. He came out almost immediately. And has been quoted as saying, when he saw Trump acting so bravely with his injured ear, because he got a boo-boo, and when he saw Trump acting so bravely with that boo-boo, he immediately got behind Trump, right, and threw his resources behind Trump, etc., and did a lot to manipulate the media story to support Trump. Okay, so so take that for what it's worth. That was sort of the MAGA liking of Musk, right? So now, fast forward for to a few days ago, and understand that we're still, Trump is not the president of the USA yet. It's just over 3 weeks before his inauguration. And so, frankly, it was pretty obvious to most of us that there was going to be a falling out of Trump and Musk and Trump and Ramaswamy. There always is. Trump has managed to fall out with almost everybody at one point or another. And as soon as he senses some form of disloyalty to him on a personal level, that's it. You're scumbag as far as Trump is concerned. He's an incredibly vindictive, petty, childish person in real life, and makes such generally poor decisions in a poor decision-making way that government officials that have worked for him in the past have generally, mostly, in the majority, have decided they don't want to work with him again in the future. Right? There are many of them that have said that man should not have been let back into office a second time. But there's always a new sycophant. There is always a new person willing to say whatever they have to say in order to appease or please Trump. And so Trump will continue his behaviors, right? But anyway, Musk a few days ago and Ramaswamy started a public discussion on Twitter where Ramaswamy in particular pointed out that the American education system is not producing the type of top tech talent that is needed in order to drive innovation in the USA. And therefore, that's why we have to improve the H-1B system and also improve employment-based immigration. And Musk got on that bandwagon almost immediately and said the same things. Musk was saying, yeah, absolutely, we've got to drive for more H-1B, for more immigrants who are, of high caliber, high programming capabilities, high, engineering staff with extremely good educational backgrounds and the right sort of people. And that talent, that top tech talent, doesn't exist really in America, according to them. Now, I myself came to this country originally through the H-1B program. And in 2014, actually, I came on an H-1B visa, which I had got in the lottery. There was a lottery at that time in the year that I applied for the H-1B visa that year. I got through the lottery. I was chosen in the lottery for the H-1B program. And there's a lottery in that program because more people were applying than there are H-1B visas available. And so there was a lottery in 2008 and 2009, and then it was reintroduced for the 2014 year and has been there every year since then. There was a short period of time from 2010 to 2013 when there was no H-1B lottery because there were less people applying for the H-1B than there were H-1B visas available. But now there are more people applying for the H-1B visas than there are visas available. And that's one aspect of the program, which is a problem. Tech leaders such as Musk and Ramaswamy are saying there should be many more H-1B visas available. But the H-1B visa isn't an immigrant visa, it's a non-immigrant visa. And so the next stage is to say, well, okay, we want to invite more H-1B applicants to the country to come and work with us because we need that immediate access to top tech talent and bring them to the country. But the flip side of that is that you have to make it easier for them to apply for green cards later. So, after some time period, their employer could say, hey, you've been working out really well. We'd like to offer sponsorship to get you a green card. That at the moment for certain countries, because of the country caps, is a very, very slow process. For Indians in particular, who make up the majority of the H-1B applications, the immigration process for those folks is very, very slow because of the caps. It can take many years of waiting, and so that's unattractive to H-1B people. Those top tech talent, can now, in this day and age, they can work wherever they want, really. They can go to Europe, they could go to the UK or Germany or wherever, and they could find employment in those places far easier than they can find employment here. And more importantly, they're given the rights of citizenship faster, and so they are able to be to put down roots. Because as a non-immigrant visa holder, you can't really put down roots in the same way. You're not really sure that you're going to be allowed to stay forever, and therefore your commitment to the country is not quite as deep as if you are given an opportunity to emigrate to the country. And so so there is this argument going on that says we need to increase the number of H-1B visas, and we need to increase immigration from these elite top tech talent young people, right? So MAGA is listening to all of this. The MAGA supporters. Now understand that the MAGA supporters, statistically, this is not me making things up, but statistically, the MAGA supporters, Trump supporters, are generally speaking, statistically, less educated than most Americans, right? They are the lesser educated segment of society, right? The typical MAGA supporter tends to be old, white, male, and uneducated. That is absolutely borne out by statistical evidence, right? It's not just me making it up. And I'm not saying that the only voters of Trump are old, white, uneducated, men, but that is the largest segment, and that is the most likely indicator. Being uneducated is actually the leading indicator of how you would vote for Trump. Now, there are some very smart people that vote for Trump for different reasons, let's say. But there are a lot of uneducated people voting for Trump. And they were told by Trump that immigrants are taking their jobs and that immigrants are therefore a bad thing. And all of a sudden, we've got someone who is deeply in the pocket of Trump and deeply powerful within the soon-to-be organization of the Trump administration. There are people that are going around saying, hey, we need more immigrants and we need smart people, not stupid people. And by the way, the American schools are not producing the best top talent, and that's why we're hiring from abroad. All of those comments, by the way, are absolutely true. America's education is not very highly rated. It really isn't. And we do find better talent from abroad, frankly. Because you've got countries like India, for example, where I can tell you from personal experience, Indian engineers I work for, their kids are going through school learning as much as they can possibly learn, and they're not generally wasting their time looking at TikTok videos and or running around playing sports. They're taking extracurricular educational activities. They're doing additional courses to try and get ahead, to get their education levels up. They are working hard to learn things like programming and that sort of thing, whereas American kids are generally not doing those things to the same level as with the same vigor. And so if you imagine transplanting that back to India and how education is viewed in India and several other countries, those countries view education as a way out of the situation that they've been in for the last so many years, and their kids culturally believe it is important to work on their education and become as educated as they possibly can and to work hard and so on. And those are exactly the qualities that these engineering companies, these software companies are looking for, right? And so what Trump and what Ramaswamy and Musk is saying is absolutely correct, but it is absolutely not what the MAGA followers want to hear, and so they are up in arms about it. It is going to take some time for this sort of argument to die down. But here's the point of my video. That's all background. I needed to explain the background of the current argument, etc. But what is likely to happen, right? I think Trump is probably not quite as stupid as the people that follow him, right? He's not the world's brightest man by any means. He went through a good business school, but it's widely understood that he's not the smartest guy, and he really isn't. He doesn't read very much. He's not really very well educated. He pretends to know a lot more about subjects that he really doesn't know. So he's not the world's brightest man, but he's probably smart enough to know that Musk and Ramaswamy are smarter than him, and what they're saying is probably right. And he's probably hearing that from a lot of other business leaders too. And so Trump himself is probably going to have to do something that will appear or appease perhaps that train of thought that Musk and Ramaswamy is bringing forward. But Trump has got to play a very careful game because he can't afford to upset his supporters. So the only way then that I see they've got a way forward is by appeasing what is being requested by people like Musk and Ramaswamy, which is a higher level of education for more immigrants from educated sources to bring the top talent to this country so that this country can thrive. I think that they will try and do something towards that. But in order to do that, they're going to have to appease the stupid people, the supporters of Trump. And that is going to have to they're going to have to think of a way of sacrificing something in the immigration budget somehow. They're going to have to take away from Peter to pay Paul, in my opinion. I don't think they will just say, okay, we're going to increase the number of immigrants. I think they're going to say, we'll increase the number of immigrants in that category, employment-based, and we're going to increase the number of H-1B visas available, and we're going to speed up that process. But in order to do that, we're going to cut immigrant numbers from somewhere else. And they would probably try and cut them from asylum and from refugee numbers if they could. They might try and cut them from family-based, that's possible. But DV lottery is bound to be a target for them. There's 50,000 or so visas available to the DV lottery. It's although there is an education level requirement, it's not quite the same points-based system that has been talked about in the past, where highly educated folks are given some sort of preference or priority. And so I would not be surprised if this current argument morphs into something that actually becomes a suggested bill, a suggested law that actually someone crafts to say, yes, we can have more H-1B visas, and yes, we can offer those H-1B folk a faster path to immigration than we're currently doing. But to pay for that, we will cut down in other areas, including perhaps killing the DV lottery program. It could happen, right? Now, will it happen overnight? No, absolutely. It wouldn't happen overnight. It won't affect DV 2025. It probably won't even affect DV 2026, and probably wouldn't even affect DV 2027. That's how slow government stuff goes, right? It's not going to be a quick thing. However, it could happen, and I've said in the past that I don't believe that they will just produce a bill that would stop DV lottery on its own, but they could easily find a situation where it becomes a trading game to say, yes, we'll give up DV lottery in favor of what we think this country really needs, which is being voiced at the moment by Musk and Ramaswamy, and I don't think it's going to be very long before the conversation drifts to, okay, where can we find these additional visas to give more visas to highly talented people from other countries that we want to come into the country. And so I don't think it's impossible that we see that sort of bill being suggested. And I really just felt it was worth warning my listeners, about this current conversation. It's a conversation that is worth listening to, although it's extremely heated, very personal. Lots of personal attacks being made, and it could just result in a bunch of arguments, which is fine. I'd be okay with that. It's quite funny. I mean, who knew that Trump would fall out with Ramaswamy and Musk? Well, everybody with an IQ over 101 knew that, frankly. But apparently the MAGA Muppets didn't know that. So I'm all here to enjoy the argument, but I think that the argument, if it goes anywhere, will probably move towards a conversation of how do we increase the immigration budget, the number of visas available for talented individuals and highly educated individuals, and where can we take that from? And I wouldn't be at all surprised if TV lottery is one of the places that they'll take that budget from. Okay, so is anything happening tomorrow? No. So although I'm making this video and I'm publishing this video, and it's the end of December, all I'm doing really is educating you about what is going on in the conversation. The Trump administration will have about 2 years of a period of time where they've got control of the House and the presidency, and of course the Supreme Court as well. But so they've got a 2-year runway where they could implement. They've got a better chance of implementing policy. But immigration policy is notoriously difficult to get agreement on, and it's going to need some horse trading if it's to go anywhere. So this could be the way that direction is formed to start reforming immigration law in ways that are fundamentally better for the USA. And I do agree, frankly, personally, I agree with the sentiment that a points-based system, for example, might be more appropriate these days. I mean, there was a time when diversity was a concern, and the diversity visa lottery was implemented for that reason. But maybe it is time to consider how we bring more talented individuals to the country and reward them with green cards to try and keep them in the country, rather than letting that talent work here, gain education here, gain experience here, and then go elsewhere in the world and practice their skills. It would be smart to try and bring those people here and keep them here with green cards, rather than letting them go to wherever they want to go to. At the same time, I have to say that the landscape has changed in the last few years in terms of offshoring. A few years ago, it was more common to bring a bunch of folks from abroad and bring offshore talent onshore so that we could get work done quickly. What is happening now, though, is that there are talent centers being created in other countries, both nearshore and offshore, where there are tech hubs being created, where lots of highly educated individuals are working in places like Eastern Europe, like India, Pakistan, South America, places where education actually is breeding the right sort of folks and producing the right sort of talent. And instead of those people coming to America to work, we are simply outsourcing work to those places because it can be done remotely almost as efficiently as bringing the people onshore. So my own company, for example, out of a team of maybe 600 engineers, we now have 300 or 400 of those engineers based offshore. and nearshore. So, my own company is an example of that sort of thing. We haven't felt the need to bring all those people here. We don't need to. We can have that work done offshore, and those offshore workers are working very happily at home, getting paid well for their country's levels, but producing work for us here in America at the speed that we need that work to be produced and at the cost that we need to work into our budgets. So I have a fairly sort of open insight into this, into the point that Ramaswamy and Musk are making. And I do tend to agree with them. Not everyone will, of course, but I tend to agree with them that we need to do something to reform, the immigration system to bias towards that. Even though for the last 10 plus years, I've been a fervent supporter of diversity visa lottery and everything to do with it. And I will remain that until the program stops. But this could be the beginning of the end for diversity visa lottery. This sort of conversation is the beginning way that, this is the way that stopping the DV lottery could happen. I'm not saying it will happen, it's just a possibility. And I'm certainly not saying it would happen quickly. But this is the sort of conversation that would happen that could end the DV lottery in future years. And again, absolutely, categorically, I'll state it right here and now, just to be absolutely clear. It does not affect in any way, it cannot possibly affect DV25. I don't think it would even affect DV26. And I personally don't think it could be implemented fast enough for DV27 to be affected either. So it's beyond that time. But nevertheless, it could come. We could have that sort of change. We'll have to just wait and see. All right, everybody. I hope that was informative and interesting to you. Just my thoughts on the subject. Let me know what you think. My blog is at BritSimonSays.com. Let me know if you agree with some of the thoughts I've just voiced here. Does that make sense to you? What do you think about immigration? Do you think America needs to tweak its immigration system somehow? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about that. All right, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.